Speech 1 for Miss Amy Fowler. Hi, I'm Amanda Jewel Pierce. Amanda in Latin means worthy of love. My parents originally wanted to name me Mandy because I have a twin sister and they thought it would be unique and cute if we have rhyming names. But they decided that we needed formal names for when we were adults. So they decided on Amanda and Candace with nicknames Mandy and Candy. My middle name is Jewel, and it was taken from two of my great-great-grandmothers as well as my grandmother, Jewel Kathleen Pierce. And I feel really honored to have their name as my middle name because I really didn't know two of them, and it's a way for me to remember them. I was born on February 12th, 1991. And this really wasn't a very interesting day in history, but throughout history, February 12th has been pretty interesting. And I found three things that stood out to me the most. The first was that on February 12th, 1973, 143 American prisoners of war were first released from Vietnam after the Vietnamese War. They were flown to Clark's Air Force Base in the Philippines and were immediately checked out by doctors and said to be in relatively good condition. The thing that I found most interesting was that the planes that went to retrieve them were nicknamed the Hanoi Taxis because the majority of the troops were rescued from Hanoi, Vietnam. This was actually one of the last times that these jets were used because they were retired shortly after that. The second thing that I found interesting was that on February 12, 1914, the first stone of the Lincoln Monument was put into place as a remembrance of Lincoln's birthday, which was also on February 12th. 1 year later, on February 12, 1915, the cornerstone was put into place. The monument was 204 feet by 134 feet by 99 feet and had 36 columns. Each column was to represent a state in the Union at the time. The monument was dedicated on May 30th, 1922. This was 57 years after Lincoln's death. The building is said to be perpetual, as Lincoln said the Union was. The last thing that I found most interesting was that on February 12, 1949, War of the Worlds was broadcast over the radio in Quito, Ecuador. And it wasn't made public that the broadcast was fictional before it actually occurred. So when the people heard that their town was being attacked by aliens, they freaked out. And they took to the streets in their pajamas, and the radio station tried to convince them that it was all just fictional and that it was a prank. But by this time, the people were very angry, and they stoned the radio station building. And some of the employees escaped, but many of them were still trapped inside the building and tried to jump through windows and form a chain going down, but it broke halfway. The rioters started pulling the flyers off the outside wall and lighting them on fire and throwing them in the building. And the employees tried to call the police, but the police were going to the next town because they didn't know that it was a hoax either. So the building was engulfed in flames and 20 people died. And this disaster caused $350,000 worth of damage, which was a lot of money in 1949. The two broadcasters behind the hoax were arrested and indicted, and the radio station eventually reclaimed its fame and position at the top. These were just a few things that I found interesting about my day, and there are many things about everybody's day.